Hi Scorpio, hope you're doing well this season, Scorpio season. This goes out to all these Scorpios in the room. Um, that means the Sun Scorpios, anyone who has their birthday this season. And it means anybody else who has Scorpio energy in their chart, wherever it might be. I mean, we're talking about the moon sign, we're talking about the rising sign, we're talking about um, anything, I guess. I mean, the basics would be moon, sun, moon, rising. But if you have any other placement in Scorpio, or if you feel drawn to Scorpio energy for any reason, um, this is your reading. So, welcome to Alcyone Tarot. I didn't announce this in any of my previous videos, but I had been announcing that the name of the channel was Tarot Incognito. Incognita. Went through a few name changes anyway. I don't know why I can't talk today. Actually, you know, I've heard a lot of tarot readers say, I can't talk today. There's a throat chakra blockage. But, you know, I can't say that that actually means anything in particular for me because it's a regular occurrence with me. So this is not a message. Maybe that's a message. I'm feeling that this reading was difficult to set up as well visually for whatever reason. Oftentimes I don't struggle so much, but the camera angle seemed just not to be able to get it right. Anyway, we're here today in Scorpio season, and I'm just going to share with you my insights on the cards that I've already drawn, and I'm going to give some clarification on these cards. I'm not sure how everybody is feeling right now. I guess there's certain things going on in the world which have been affecting us all collectively on a big scale. No need to go into that. I guess we all have some sense of what they are. Obviously, everybody's different in their specific parts of the globe. But it has been a very shattering year, I guess, for the collective, and very deep changes going on. So with that being said, what can I say? I want to just talk about the general sense I'm getting at the moment of the energy. It's strange because Scorpio often comes with a sense of, even though it's sort of the sign of death, and it's sort of the dying embers of, I guess in the northern hemisphere, it's like the dying embers of fall, summer, fall, and moving into winter. So it's death and rebirth, and of course whatever hemisphere you're in, it still represents a changing season and a transition. So there's usually some sort of sense of passion and fire, and even some kind of a campiness. I mean, we got Halloween, we just passed us by. I'm not feeling that right now, though. I'm feeling something more contained, but it's not necessarily so easy to deal with. Despite that, there's still so much energy in the air during this season, during Scorpio season. I was sitting there in the house by myself. No one was was home but me, and I could there's a pressure to silence. There's always noise and silence. You know, if you're in nature and suddenly you notice all the sounds that you don't ordinarily hear. And I could just hear this hum of the house, the city, the town in which I live, and all the appliances, the hum of the workings of my home, my environment, my world. And it was intense, you know. It was a lot, too much, almost, even the silence. But then that led to this general insight of just the sheer amount of energy there is, just the sheer feeling of the energy that it takes to maintain the energetic bonds that keep things together. There's almost an impressive sense of that, and yet there's also a feeling that there's a lot more more energy being preserved or conserved, and there's a quietness to Scorpio energy, because Scorpio isn't just about the release of energy and the intense explosive energies and the life force energy and the kundalini and all the rest. It's about the conservation of energy as well. I guess that means transfer and change, but not every release is a dramatic release, I suppose. So yeah, I'm getting that right now. I'm getting like kind of like the fun kind of dramatic horror campiness of our tarot reader community, Scorpio gothy. The drama of it is a little bit toned down. I mean, we've just been through Halloween, I suppose. That's kind of like the Scorpio festival, so maybe we're all winding down a little bit, but I even felt that before that, actually. So yeah, those are my overall thoughts. I'm not sure if this applies to the general energy or applies specifically to Scorpios or to people I'm speaking to, but just to mention it. So I have pulled some I-Ching cards here, and I'm using an I-Ching deck, so I'm not using the traditional method of pulling the I-Ching, which involves coins or yarrow sticks. Instead, I'm just pulling a card and then pulling a card to clarify that, because with I-Ching you have these lines on the card which represent the energy bound up, as I was saying, bound up in the hexagram. Each of these cards which are cards here are known as hexagrams. They're basically just a series of strong lines and broken lines, that is yin and yang lines combined together, and each combination represents a particular hexagram which has a different symbolic meaning. So here we have hexagram 17. Hexagram 17 is the hexagram that I pulled, and to clarify hexagram 17, we have hexagram 43. It is changing into hexagram 43. It's changing through the lines. Basically what we do is we look at these lines here on this card and look at the lines here on that card, and we see which one of them is different, which one of them, in other words, is changing. And the lines that are changing in hexagram 17 here are lines 4 and 5. So these are the lines that we read, as in lines 4 and 5 on this card are different, whereas the other lines are the same as this card. Okay, so here's our little lesson. Oh, I said I wasn't going to be long-winded, but here we are. Okay, so anyway, let's just have a look at these the meanings of these cards. Hexagram 17, it's usually known as following. Following means to go with the way of nature, basically, to adapt. In this booklet we have for this deck that I've got, the word or the name of the hexagram is emulation adaptation. So I'm just going to read the description. In the ancient Chinese text, this sign is synonymous with autumn. All life adapts to the yearly cycle. Decay follows creation. You achieve your goals insofar as you keep the reality in mind and do not go against the grain of fate with misplaced opposition. Be peaceful and open-minded. Do not waste your energy on the struggle against beliefs which cannot be changed. Only those who can be dishonest will find the strength to lead others. If you proceed with trickery and force, you will achieve little except resistance. Look closely at your own ideas and values. Bring them into harmony with your environment. You will go further if you put aside preconceptions and outdated views. The changing lines in this hexagram are 4 and 5. So 4 says, you are surrounded by sycophants who are merely seeking self-advantage. You remain spiritually free and independent of external forces only if you can resist adulation. And 5 says, you need a higher ideal for which you are prepared to make a sacrifice. If you wish others well, it will reflect kindly upon you. And the hexagram is changing to is hexagram 43, which is known as resoluteness. Let's see what it is in this particular deck. Breakthrough resolution. Unfavorable forces lose their influence and you can achieve a breakthrough, but you must act resolutely and perhaps even uncompromisingly. Admit to your intentions and aims, fight hard but keep smiling. Violence and hatred are beneath you. Should you succumb to negative emotions, those very forces which you are fighting against will take hold of you. Be careful not to project your own mistakes onto other people. Your environment always holds the mirror up to your behavior, and it is absolutely certain that the fruit of your own actions will be reaped by you alone. So this is a very judgment energy, like the judgment card in the tarot, but we have a card. The card leading to this is a card. The advice right now is actually the opposite. We're going to get to this point, but we have to get there by. There's something about here about eschewing leadership right now. In the description for this, it said something about only those who can be dishonest can lead others. So you cannot really lead at the moment except by following. It feels like that's the advice I'm getting right now. Following, it doesn't mean being a doormat or it means it's more like waiting. I feel like it's more like working within your capacities and working with others. I find this really interesting. Just these, it's wonderful, really. You know, as this card is described, it's described as autumn, the time for decay. I mean, what a more could you find a more perfect card for Scorpio in November right now? I mean, come on. And you know, that's one of its interpretations in the booklet I just read out. But I also look it up online, and it's also interpreted as the leader retiring when it's dark, when you know, or the individual when the day is done, they retire and into repose. So there's a sense of rest about it as well. So, you know, the day gets dark, the day gets long, and you know, you go with nature. You don't go against nature. You go to bed. You find somewhere to rest. You repose. And yeah, and then so we have almost like a microcosm and macrocosm. We've got, like, you know, the day grows dark and, you know, it's time for rest, but also the season gets, the days get darker. Again, sorry if this is very Northern Hemisphere centric. I guess a lot of what we read reflects our environment in some ways, but it could be read on any kind of level, and you could be reading this at any time. This is not specific to this particular time, despite what I mentioned about world events, etc. This is timeless. It's forever for whoever receives it exactly when they need it. So yeah, but we have a sense of the cycling of life and the need to follow nature or go along with nature. I keep looking for a better word than follow and go along, and I will find it, but I haven't found it yet. So maybe there's something about here, something about acceptance. Acceptance has not yet come of the situation that you're in currently, but it will come. It's on its way. You know, I mean, one thing to remember is when changes are happening, you can tell yourself, oh, I need to accept it. You can be all kind of, you know, love and light and tell yourself you need to accept what's happening. And you know, you might not be ready to accept what's happening. So a form of acceptance is knowing that you may not be ready to accept what's happening. You may not be ready to find a way to go with the events, and you may not be ready even to be humble. You know, it may not be the time for you yet to to accept this change. That's part of the acceptance. And we have the resoluteness here. We have this is definitely about judgment. There's also an element of exposure, of guilt in this card. So something will be set to right, but we have not set to rights, but we have not got to that point yet. We need to go with the natural cycles right now. So yeah, so that's what we got here. And for the tarot, we have an interesting little spread here. So what I'm getting here is there are two strong female figures. We've got the Empress and the Queen of Wands here. Now the Empress is a major arcana and the Queen of Wands is a minor. So the Queen of Wands is like more like an actual person. It's like somebody, an individual. Could be a fire sign, you know, could be just someone fiery, or could just be, likely it's just that energy or somehow that archetype in the world of a doer, you know, and that feminine energy. I feel like they're kind of against each other in some way. Like this is this higher principle, this higher feminine principle that's a lot more laid back and a lot more again going with the cycles. And this individual wants to make change, wants to get things done. And the Empress is saying, you know, all in its good time. And there's frustration there. I'm feeling there's frustration. But this could be two female figures or two different types of feminine. It doesn't even have to be female, but like feminine archetypes that are kind of in conflict with each other. And between them we have the Four of Wands here reversed. And it seems like there's some kind of conflict here, some idea about how to stabilize a situation or make a home or make a fair society, even a society, I guess, you know, or sort of somewhere that there's like some kind of conflict or divergence about how to do that. It seems like it could be that this person here who is more worldly is like trying to act on behalf of some kind of higher principle, perhaps. And maybe they're even resentful of that, but they could also be a little bit, or they could be a little bit the other way around, not resentful, in fact, not questioning enough this higher principle. It's like, you know, oh, you know, I'm guided by these divine feminine principles, as it were. But, you know, is that really creating a stable environment for everybody? It's a little bit of a feeling of like, I know best, you know? But it could be the other way around. It could be kind of, this is a very detached, slow energy, the Empress. It's very wise though, but there could be a misunderstanding of this perhaps, or even in reality, this doesn't connect. This is out of touch with this with these world events or these just these events in somebody's life or someone's home life. There's something about a home here. Maybe there's some kind of a delay in creating stability, and there are different ideas for how to do it, and there's frustration because there's a sense that like someone or some idea is unrealistic here, you know, too easy, and there's stress. It's causing stress because things aren't easy, you know. And so yeah, that's what I'm getting. And yeah, there's definitely a sense of impatience. Something is taking too much time, and it's like there's maybe a feminine principle that's unbalanced, and that's just seen as idealistic, as I said. But there's definitely some kind of fiery energy here to put things right. So yeah, so then we have the Ten of Swords, okay? So we're getting to a point where whoever I'm speaking to, the collective generally, or any individuals I'm speaking to, we've really, the writing's on the wall here, you know, if it isn't already, if the House of Cards hasn't already come down, the writing's on the wall. There's something about, this is the Nine of Pentacles here, there's something about some kind of sense of refinement, independence, worldly accomplishment that has just hit a wall. Like, we can't go on with the superficial. Yeah, there's a sense of futility, but it could also be that someone really had worked quite hard in the material world to create some sense of independence, and that feels crushed. But there is a sense of maybe futility with some kind of material, like individualistic self-actualizing process. Just there's a sense of like, this is just not enough. It's not enough. We have the Emperor here as well, which is just, yeah, whenever you have the feminine, whenever you have the Emperor and the Empress come out in a reading, it's always interesting. And a lot of the time tarot readers will say this is something about love. It could be. I'm not getting that, but it could be that there's something here about how there's conflict in love, perhaps, or conflict in accepting difference in a relationship, perhaps based on gender. It could be based on gender archetypes, but it could be based on anything. It doesn't have to be, you know, it could be based on anything, any opposites within these two archetypes, like the stability and control of the Emperor, the kind of slowness and natural vibes of the Empress in opposition, but a need to change, but a sense of waiting for the right time to change. A difficulty in coming together, perhaps, maybe to create a family, to create a home. There could even be a sense that there's timing issues. I mean, if you're thinking about having a family or something like that, there could be timing issues there, you know, with one of you wanting to get on with that. I mean, typically, if, you know, you have the ability to have a child, and you might be the one who's pressed about timing, but it could be either party. It could also just be just wanting to get on with some kind of commitment, or wanting some kind of commitment. So I'm just not really feeling love in the sense of romance, but I'm feeling something about working things out. And this is in a more personal sense. There's also the collective sense, and there's also like just a general sense of your own relationships with yourself, your own relationship with yourself and with any others that may be in your life. Yeah, I am also a Scorpio rising, by the way, so I'm also, you know, reading Scorpio energy, which applies to me too. And yeah, I feel I'm reading this in a more collective sense, perhaps for myself, but I'm thinking there could be something more personal here for others, and it could be, yeah, a real clash of ideals, but different ideals. But actually, you know, with the Empress and the Emperor, both are needed, you know, and it certainly shouldn't be that one is, it shouldn't be seen that one is doing more work than the other. That's really imbalanced, you know. um, there are different kinds of labor in relationships, and they matter. Like, you know, not to get again too typically feminine masculine about it, but there's like, because and anyone can be contributing those different types of labor, but there's like, you know, domestic labor, there's financial labor, there's emotional labor, even the spiritual labor of in a relationship, and these are all valuable. So there shouldn't be some kind of a showdown between those energies in which one crushes the other. That's extremely out of balance, and I feel there is something out of balance here. I don't know. I'm gonna move on. So, but there, it's a weird reading, because on the one hand, I'm getting this frustration and sense of the need to move and do something, but on the other hand, I get the sense it's just like everything is just accepting something, some reality that, yeah, some, and here we have with the Emperor as well, we've got the Six of Wands. So there's some sense of um, perhaps the victory of this energy of some kind of establishment, power, maybe more structural power. Um, this victory could be something someone has worked a long time to maintain control. They have perhaps even imprisoned some element of themselves, like the Nine of Pentacles is often seen as creating this beautiful walled garden. So perhaps this control and this order, as necessary as that might be, has actually imprisoned something or someone else, or even any individual in this spread, whoever it might be. So yeah, yeah. I think the Empress is getting a bad rap here, though. Like, she doesn't necessarily seem idle. She seems like she's just saying wait. And it's actually, it looks like a hard pause to deeply reflect. It doesn't look like let's just like chill. It looks like let's really think about this, go within ourselves. I do feel very strongly though that people, individuals here, anyone involved, feels like there's always some opposite principle who is destabilizing their world through some kind of opposite principle. And it's interesting here that I think almost like the feminine energies here, we have like this more worldly Queen of Wands, this more doery, fiery Queen of Wands is almost in opposition with itself, with the greater, say, feminine principle. So it could be in opposition with the Emperor. It could even, one or both of these could actually be in cahoots with the Emperor, and maybe that's the problem, is that there's a sense that what you feel like should be on your side is actually maybe uh, collaborating with something that's actually, you know, opposite, or even your enemy, or your some sort of opposite principle, which doesn't have to be a bad thing that there's an opposite principle, but it could be some kind of controlling force, whether it's in your life or in society, you know, some dominating force. So it's like she's supposed to be on your side, but there's a feeling that like she is just kind of in collaboration with him. You know what I'm saying? And she's benefiting somehow by his power. And this is me. This is the person who really has to do the work in the world. No one's helping me. No one's supporting me. So anyway, we'll just we'll draw a few cards just to find out some advice, and then we're gonna close it. This is quite deep as it was, so I don't think I can go too much further into it. Here I am, shuffling cards, mostly off camera, but you can see them because I am terrible at shuffling cards. I'll get better, but not yet. Okay. So the advice in the situation here is pretty clear, it seems like. The Chariot and the Knight of Swords. And it's interesting because initially we're seeing this kind of like waiting energy, but there's a frustration. Like I said, I really feel like the humming of the household appliances is something that it may be something in someone's world that's just symbolic of something that's driving them mad. Perhaps something in the domestic sphere, I'm not sure. There's just so much energy locked into everything. It's almost like each of these pieces normally they seem connected, but at the moment they seem sort of like the system seems almost like ready to burst. Like we would think of our appliances and our cities and the lights in our houses, or the heating is all sort of part of this system we don't think about because it's working together. But it's almost like we're thinking about everything pushing up against each other at this time. So there's an advice to be patient, but I also feel like in the beginning, but I also feel like what we're seeing here is this energy of pushing forward too, very strongly, and very decisively, and that's protective. I think that's protective. We don't want to get into this state where we're kind of like climbing up the walls, you know? It could be quite easy to do at the moment, I feel like, where we're really pacing and we're kind of we're really getting caught in this quicksand of this heavy energy. So we have to move forward. But we probably need to kind of keep our blinders on. I think this is what this advice is saying. We're not moving forward and looking in every single direction and looking at everything that's happening around us. We're simply moving forward. We are going with the time, but we're doing it decisively. We have made a decision that we will go forward, even if we don't know everything. What we know right now here is clear enough, and that's what we must do. Sometimes we don't have knowledge of everything, but we do have knowledge of what we must do right now, and that's got the most integrity at times, because it's without broad encyclopedic knowledge, but it is with real conviction about what our obligations are to ourselves, to others, and how to stay safe, how to stay protected in this chariot, because the chariot is protective. I heard another reader say that the other day, and it struck me. Motion is protective. So, and then what we don't see coming, we've got the Knight of Swords, we've got the Five of Cups, and we have got the Ten of Cups. So we're looking at some kind of like break in the situation. It could cause loss, or it could also be just the feeling of kind of getting up after a loss. But even if there is loss, it's like a necessary I can't think of the phrase right now, but you know what I mean. It's like a necessary release, and it's going to be over quickly. Maybe you think more quickly than we think, and we're going to be able to deal with it. We will. And there's and then we have the Ten of Cups. We don't see that there's a resolution here. We don't see that there is actually a coming together of all the elements, and it does bring people together. It's not just about bringing together elements in a way that's fabricated, or perhaps more kind of self-interested, materialistic. It's actually like people coming together of their own voluntary of their own voluntary will, and we can't predict that. We can't predict what people are going to do, but we also can't predict how people, it's not just what they'll do individually, but it's also what groups they'll form into, how the new formations of our relationships, of our sense of hope and stability. We can't predict that, and often people come together when they can see that some tension has broken, that makes them realize what actually matters. It almost gives them an excuse to do what they actually wanted to do all along, which is just kind of work in harmony together, really it's like you have to kind of like get over yourself. But sometimes you need something to come in and break the tension, which might be disappointing for everybody, to get over yourself. Or it might be a sharp shock. It might be a rude shock, as they say, but that will actually help people prioritize, and see what really matters, see the bigger picture, and stop fighting over these kind of territorial things about, like, which person's way is better, who's doing the most work, etc., etc. So that's what I'm seeing for you right now, Scorpio. And I really hope that helped. I felt like I wanted to go deeper, but I can't do it within this time frame. I feel like there's like a part 2 to this reading somehow, but it could be that the part 2 is just the next science reading, or it's just the next wave that we all experience together, or it's just it's for each individual in their own heads. Because I think we're at a particularly frustrating point in time now, where we're actually waiting for the part 2. We're impatient. It's like a show that we want to watch. We're waiting for like the finale or a critical episode, and it's not out yet. So let's call this part 1, and don't be afraid, and don't feel like you need to sink down into some sense of this decay here, you know. This isn't decay, it's a repose. And you shouldn't have to fight everything around you to gain some rest. You can just retreat. And it's quite natural. It should feel natural. It should not feel unnatural. And if someone's putting you in a situation where you feel like they're saying like, oh, you need to take a step back, or you need to, you know, whatever, and it feels unnatural, then in a way the advice is to actually accept your non-acceptance of this as well, you know, if that makes any sense. But bide your time. Don't get distracted. Also, do not get distracted. This is what this message here is saying. Don't get distracted, you know. Let the process take over. That is a lot more Scorpionic, and I'm actually happy to end on this note, because I feel like Scorpio needs some kind of needs to be part of something bigger. That was the advice as well in the booklet here for these I-Ching cards, is that you need to hold yourself to a higher standard, and you need to, the way to deal with we started out with this idea of, as well, like I forgot to emphasize this, with this idea of people who are maybe a bit sycophantic, or it's very Scorpio to want to be authentic, to cut through into authenticity, even if it means exposing people or just not putting up with an inferior standard. Well, like I said, you know what to do. Do not get distracted by pettiness, basically, and then you will find yourself in this movement, this transition, that the sense of change and of the passion and sort of the letting go that a Scorpio needs, is that there's something higher, you know, something, dedicating yourself. I think you need to dedicate yourself to something higher, and you need to keep you need to stay focused and do not be distracted by petty disputes here, you know, especially this is interesting here. There's something called the narcissism of small differences, when people are similar and they're almost trying to point out their differences as a way to distinguish themselves and feel important. Don't feel distracted by the kind of disputes that in which people are really just trying to stand out for kind of egotistical reasons. Often it's the similar elements that are most in conflict, not necessarily even the most the different and the most opposite elements. And in fact, that can be a really big distraction from the actual power. And it could be this power too, but the power that's going on behind the scenes, that's pulling all the strings. So yeah, I think I'm happy to leave it there, Scorpio. Part of Scorpio is breaking down and decay, and there's kind of a messiness to it. I think people don't talk about that either, because Scorpio is seen as like kind of a smooth and sleek Batmobile type of energy. But there's also a decay and a frustration and a kind of shedding of skin your skin is a very it's a very irritating and irritable process, but you will get back to that sort of more fluid and transformative energy that you like better. So anyway, that's what I got for you, Scorpio. I really hope that helped you, or whoever is here, and I wish you all the best with everything. And yeah, so take care. Good night, Scorpios.